everybody, and welcome into the College Rugby Wrap Up. My name is Zach Lanning. I'm joined today. We got a couple people in the house. Colby Marshall is here with me again, as you were last week. Colby, how's it going?
The vibes are immaculate, Zach Lanning. I'm doing excellent. We got a very special man on with us today.
Yes,
an old friend.
I would say the vibes are immaculate because of this person's with us. It's not Josh Ressio. It is the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Matt McCarthy, who is back with us. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. I am looking to Wally Pip, Josh Ressio. Google Wally Pip, all of you millennials.
I don't think Josh would know who it is, but he's going to know when it happens to him. And it's a low bar you're going to have to clear for this, Matt. You do well this episode. Wow. I think you have the gig.
Wow. So. You just threw Josh under the bus. Okay.
Colby, back me up. He's missed 2 episodes in a row now. I don't know if we can,
spotty.
Expect too much.
The man has been spotty. And he's been posting on Instagram in his short little rugby shorts.
Yeah, he's out there playing. They have a whole different work ethic out in California. It's like European. And I know that I'm offending everybody, and I don't care.
Only the West Coast, so that's fine. We'll lose our West Coast audience. But he's working hard on the battle for the mitten, I'm sure, as well, which we can talk about a little bit later, and we'll have some preview podcasts of coming up on that. That's going to be a great event at the end of the month. But we have plenty to talk about here today, guys, so let's kind of keep the ball rolling here. I do want to start us off with, some rugby that's outside of the college space. Technically, you could say it's at the international level, and we're in the thick of things here with the Women's World Cup. So I'd love to get your guys' reactions to the big win by the Eagles, coming back after that opening loss to Italy and beating Japan, getting a bonus point win over Japan to keep their playoff hopes alive in the World Cup format. They won 30-17. Matt, we can start with you. Any takeaways from this victory by the Eagles over New Zealand?
Well, I would say after watching the first half, there was a collective exhaling and relief nationwide here in the United States watching the second half where they took it to Japan. But I'm not going to brag. I'm not going to brag about the 12 points that I picked USA to win over Japan in the Super Brew Rugby Wrap Up fantasy predictor pool. I'm not going to do that. But,
you would never do that.
So
that's
that's 12
an
points.
excellent margin there, Matt.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bring it up. But
never. That could never happen. Nobody go look. Nobody send Matt a thank you text or email about it.
You're welcome, but you don't have to thank me. but no, seriously, great second half. Maybe now they're finding their legs. They're finding their rhythm. They're maybe a little bit of continuity now, more knowing of each other, and hopefully that carries forward.
Yeah, I liked the move. They had Alev Kelter move from the fullback spot back into the back line at the inside center, and she had a good game with over 30 meters carried. I believe she scored a bunch of. She had 12 points on the day. Janine Dedevo has had a good tournament so far. She had 80 meters in this game, carried meters, and a try as well. So she's been really a weapon for them offensively. Colby, what do you like from the win here from the Eagles?
Yeah, it's a huge bounce back win, like you said, Zach. I called you Josh.
What? That was Matt's thing, and you did it. It's just because he's on the podcast now. Is that why it happened?
You realize now I'm gonna do it now.
I'm traumatized. I've officially been traumatized. But
what were your thoughts of the game?
Yeah, coming off of that tough loss against Italy, like I said last week, you don't get a lot of time in a competition like the World Cup to turn things around. You kind of have to do it in the very next game, and that's what they did. So led by their captain, Kate Zachary, and the likes of Katherine Johnson, who actually gave us a scare with that yellow card early on. They were able to come away with the W, and that's what we expected.
Captain Kate with some serious leadership when it was needed.
Agree. She always cleans things up for the U.S., seems to always be in the right spot at the right time, make the hard meters. Katherine Johnson was a huge addition to the squad, who did not play in that first game against Italy, and I ended up leading the game in tackles with 14, which was a huge kind of that's huge on the defensive side of things for the U.S. Guys. Matt, you talked about your Super Brew excellence here going forward. What's your pick for now this critical game coming up against Canada, who have had the U.S.'s number this year so far, beating them every time they've played in those earlier 2 matches, but I don't believe the U.S. was at full strength during that. Not sure about the Canadian roster for that one, but Canada undefeated now. They beat Italy in this round of pool play as well. So a really, really tough task for the U.S. Matt, what's your prediction for that match?
We don't have the luxury of the lineups at this moment while we're talking about this, unfortunately. But if Team USA, it depends on which Team USA shows up. If it's the team that shows up in the first half against Japan, they're going to be in big trouble early. If it's the team that showed up against Italy in the first half and didn't finish on key opportunities, it's going to be a long day. But if they play the way they played in the second half against Japan, and there's no reason to think that they won't, and take that momentum and take that confidence and take it forward, they might be able to knock off Canada.
That would be amazing. That would be the best thing that it could happen for USA Rugby for a long time. And that's a huge match coming up. Colby, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that? Are you with Matt on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think rugby, all sports, it's a game of momentum. I think if they can, especially in an atmosphere like the World Cup where you play games so often, if they can carry that momentum from the second half into their next game, sky's the limit. I feel like in a structure like this, if a team gets hot, it could be anybody's ball game.
I think they did what they had to do, and they beating Japan in the bonus point win. They took care of business there, which was a good, promising sign. I think this game is at like 2:45 a.m. Eastern time, so I don't know if anyone's going to be up watching like the most pivotal game of the year for the United States Eagles in this one, but it'd definitely be worth it if you do. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm going to pick the Eagles as well, just because I really, really want the win. I think that'd be huge for the program and for, rugby in the States going forward. And then that gives them a really great shot at making it into the quarterfinals there in the next round of the World Cup. And that would be big as well. So we will see. But with that, we'll turn it back to the college game. And, a lot of huge matches on that front as well. We're starting to get towards that playoff period of time at the college level. And we're starting to see some of the top teams separate themselves from the rest, guys. So I want to start with Rugby East in the NCR, which is kind of the cream of the crop at this point. Again, excluding kind of the CRAA teams, Cal's, Lindenwood's, also Linden, the Life. We're not talking about St. Mary's. We're talking about the cream of the crop that play 15s in the fall. And we had some pretty big results on the weekend, guys. So give me your thoughts on some of these score lines here. Army crushed Penn State 40-14, kind of solidified themselves. We're still number one. We're still the best in the country. Navy beat Notre Dame College, which was a tough test. They're always a really tough program, but Navy still undefeated here. They won that game 36-21. And the Bonnies, St Bonaventure beat Kutztown. I mean, they blew out Kutztown 32-15 in that one. So kind of making a case for themselves as, the returning champs in the NCR. So what do you think? Who do you think is the best team right now in Rugby East, Colby? We can start with you after this weekend's slate of games.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned Army trying to make their case for the top team in the Rugby East. I think it's Navy. I think they're the best team. I think they're the team to beat. They kind of came onto the scene this year, trying to steal Army shine a little bit from last season, and they haven't slipped up yet. And, I feel like the new kid on the block, they got that sort of vibe to them. You didn't really see them coming, but now they're here and you don't really know what to do with them because you haven't seen a lot of them. So, I mean, in their game against Notre Dame College, they faced adversity in that game. It was on the road, really tough place to play at NDC, a game that they played NDC on their home turf a few years ago and had some trouble with. So they went in there, were down 6-3 early on and came away with a nice, convincing 15-point victory over a good team. And, Army's went over Penn State. That's impressive too. Penn State hasn't been playing their best ball this year, as we know. But I really like what I see from Navy, and I think they're the best team in the Rugby East.
Hey, Matt, are you surprised by this run by Navy this year, this undefeated stretch of games here? I mean, they've always been kind of a top-tier program, a solid program, but really never this dominant in the college space.
Well, the one thing that you learn about the academies is that they have that infrastructure that can help change things around in a hurry. And if they're, blooding players early in their system and then giving them the chance, and some of these guys, they're young, but they're still taking advantage of the opportunity. Easy for me to say. You can have this kind of success, and I think that's what's going on at Navy.
Yeah, so I think Navy, Colby, I'm with you. They're the top team for me. I would love to see an Army Navy matchup. Although I guess Army is really, really good, and they just take care of business whenever they have to. So they have not given me any doubt. So I'm going to change that midstream of consciousness. I think Army is still number one. I don't think Navy has the experience there to unseat them at this point. But yeah, I don't know. Is that crazy? Army is they were the best of all rugby. They beat all the CRAA teams as well. So nothing says to me that Navy has the juice to beat them this year in the NCR.
Well, you'd think they'd be the hungrier team, right? Like I said, our Army, they won it last year. Who knows? They might get a little fat and happy down the stretch. Navy still has something to prove.
That's true. We'll see if that plays a role in this. But definitely, these are the top teams. Colby, are you worried about Kutztown at all? I mean, a really close win over Southern Virginia that was a little closer than they probably wanted. Now here they only put up 15 against St Bonaventure. They had a great sevens run at the end of the spring last year, or is this spring? But are you worried about that program going forward?
Yeah, I think you have to be. And you mentioned their great performance in the sevens tournament. I think you're seeing a few teams with a little hangover from the summer. In the fall, you've seen Iona fall off a little bit this fall after making a deep run in the sevens tournament. Not to say it has much to do with the fall, but
you won a game this weekend.
And we are coming off a big homecoming victory against Clemson. So the girls are on the right track, but it's not what you would expect from Iona's side after dropping 2 games already in the season, one of which was considered an upset in their loss to Fairfield. So I think you do have to worry a little bit if you're Kutztown, but they're led by a great head coach in Doc Jones, and I'm sure they'll make adjustments, but it's not going to get any easier for them. They play in a really tough conference. They're going to have to deal with the likes of Army and Navy down the stretch and St Bonaventure again. So it's not going to get any easier. So I think you have to be concerned to an extent if you're Kutztown.
I mean, we will say Bonnies are the number one, or they were. We'll talk about that now a little bit. They were the number one team in the NCR coaches poll. They are NCR champs, returning champs from last year. Just one more scoreline to highlight there. Also in Rugby East, Queens University Charlotte on the men's side beat Southern Virginia 43-29. They've had a quietly solid season. But do we think so? This year there was a change this week in the NCR coaches poll, and Brown University has leapfrogged the Bonnies to the number one spot here. Brown having a amazing season so far, undefeated to this point. And Matt, you actually were at their game this week against Fordham, which they won pretty convincingly to keep making that case that they're the best team right now in the fall.
They are stacked, and they are talented at key positions, but they also have depth. And they've got a number 8 that is a sophomore, Antonio Esteves, that number 8, the Portuguese
Magnifico
powerhouse for Brown. That impressed me, and I did tell him he's just got to stop chirping. But they are a very good side. A lot of good internationals. I think they've got 2 South Africans at prop up front. They really took it to a Fordham program that, quite frankly, is struggling with numbers. They're struggling with experience. Some of the guys that were starting against Brown have only been playing for 4 months.
Wow.
And that's the gap between some of these programs. But we have seen, and Brown has proven it. And if you look at Bonaventure, these teams can turn around in a hurry if the alumni gets behind them. And Brown's alumni is firmly behind this squad.
You did mention, Matt, you talked to a few of the coaches and players involved, and we'll break this game down in more detail in a special segment this week that we're going to do called the College Rugby Wrap Up Deep Dive, where we kind of take a game that we all found interesting and delve into the storylines involved and some of the statistics and stuff that goes beyond the score line. So we'll talk about how a program like Brown can build with support from the university and its alumni donors. We'll talk about how at Fordham having probably the most accomplished rugby player to coach in the college ranks. Man, I don't know if I'm speaking out of line with that, but Ben Foden taking over at Fordham is probably the marquee rugby player to coach in the college ranks in the U.S. to see what kind of effect a star power like that has on a program. So that's all stuff that you guys want to check that show out. That'll be coming out this week as well after the pod. So don't say anything more, anybody. We'll keep it all for that. But I will say there is a huge game this weekend, Brown v. Dartmouth rematch on Saturday, the 22nd. So everybody tune in for that. That should be a great game.
That's at Brown, by the way.
at home game at Brown.
Is that Friday Night Lights? No,
not Friday, unfortunately. But that should be. That's a great game. Have you ever been to the Dartmouth home field, Matt? Because Josh talks about that all the time. Like, what a crazy facility that is that Dartmouth has there, and how important that is for a team to have just an amazing home facility like that. I'm not sure what Browns is like, but
Dartmouth's spectacular. I've been there. I had the pleasure of calling a couple of games up there with the great John Broker, and just fabulous. Absolutely what's it? Is it Hanover? Is that what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Great town. Plus you get to see Alexander Magleby. So that's always a treat.
The one and only. Yeah, that's a good crossover MLR college stuff there. So but good guys. So we'll talk about that game, like I said, in kind of more detail going forward. But let's talk about, now we're on the topic of best teams, top teams, which some may argue is kind of a fool's errand to try and figure out when you're mid-college season, just because of all the differences in schedule and when teams play and when they don't play, and 15s and 7s, blah blah blah. But we do have, for the first time this year, at least that I've seen, the D1A CRAA men's power rankings have been released. So we can take a look at those right now, guys. But before we get into that, Matt, I think you were involved with the creation of these rankings. Am I correct?
Well, I'm voting. I have the honor of being picked to vote on the rankings. I didn't create it. There was a number of us, I'm not sure how many, that were asked to literally pick 1 through like 30.
Matt, why are you doing that?
I was asked. Simple as that. They asked me, so I'm doing it.
That's very magnanimous of you, Matt. I know you're a busy man, so I'm glad that you.
People always say, "Well, why are you working with what?" Because they ask.
That's all you got to do.
For
any of us, we're all available.
And then sometimes you have to ask and pay, but sometimes you don't have to pay.
We do have to
take your chances.
Shocking,
That's what you
right?
doing, like
Stunning.
Yeah.
But it's good that they did ask you, Matt, because you like, as you said, your votes were pretty close to how things shook out here. So we'll say I'll run through the top 5 here are chalk. Army, St. Mary's, Lindenwood at 3, Cal at 4, and then Life at 5. Any surprises to you guys out of that, Matt? Did that differ from how you voted?
It's pretty, Army was my automatic number 1 across. You brought up the fact that we have different brackets or different divisions or different organizations in the college game. We've already talked about that a lot, but at least it's getting a little bit smaller. Some of the stuff is consolidated more, but Army across the board proven that they are the team to beat. I think Davenport should move up a couple of notches. I'm not sure where Brown and Bonnie slot in just yet. So it really is. It's even more difficult when teams aren't playing yet, right? Because there's 2 different seasons in college rugby.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the whole idea of a power rankings is to highlight the teams that are on the up. I feel like during a specific point in time, I would say. So I think more love needs to be, yeah.
But are we talking an overall what we think, or are we talking the CRAA D1A power rankings versus the NCR rankings?
In an overall,
or are we combining?
So I think this conversation is specifically about D1A and these programs, because we've talked about, I know Alex Goff at the Goff Rugby Report puts out rankings that are kind of his own formula and calculation. NCR has the coaches poll. And again, all these teams are kind of separate. We talk about those rankings as well. So we can chat about where teams like Brown and St Bonaventure slot in here, but I'm really just interested in kind of these 20, top 20 teams that we've picked out, because you're right. It is interesting that you can have an Army at 1 and a St. Mary's who have not played at all at 2. How can you say that they're better than a Lindenwood who have played a few games, that beat Life already? Or a Cal who hasn't played, or Life, who's a BYU at 6, and then Navy at 7, who are undefeated and playing great rugby. Why do they deserve to be at 7 underneath these programs? So I don't know. Yeah, just it is tough to do this, but I think it's a useful exercise, especially if you kind of synthesize all the data that you have. And I don't know. I do agree with you. I think Davenport at 10 is a little tough of a call there by the experts, because they played a lot of great games. They're playing in the fall, and they have beat teams like Ohio State. They beat Indiana, who is probably the best team in the Big Ten right now. They've had a very excellent fall season so far. So maybe I would have moved them up a little bit from 10. But talk to me about this, guys. Penn State down all the way down at 17 under Cal Poly and Texas A&M. Is this somewhere you'd expect to see the Nittany Lions slotting in a D1A power ranking at all? I don't know if that's shocking to me to look at.
Yeah, definitely is shocking. It's not somewhere that you usually see them in the rankings. Penn State, led by Coach Hunley, is just a great side year in and year out. And this is obviously, they're going through a tough time. They have arguably the hardest schedule in all of college rugby. So they're going through a tough time. And, like I said before, I think what they're going through now is going to help them down the line. And I expect them to see, you should probably see them move up a few notches in the rankings by the time the year's over.
And as for those overall rankings, that you could try to say, or you could argue that if you picked Army and Navy and see how they fared against teams in the NCR and D1A, then you can kind of maybe start coming up with how so-and-so would do against them. Or, that's because that's all we have to go on, our teams that play in both divisions and how they might or might not stack up.
Right. And we've seen that matchup between Army and St. Mary's last year. So I'm okay with the power rankings, having them at 1 and 2, because we've seen that matchup. Army came out on top. So we at least know they have that edge. So I'm okay with these rankings.
Yeah, other than a couple quibbles at the lower end of it, I think that the top 5 are always going to be the top 5. Maybe Navy makes a case later on to be included in that as well. But I think we'd all love to see more games, between these premier programs. I think so. We'll see how that happens schedule wise going forward. But so those are the D1A men's power rankings. Talked about the NCR power rankings as well. Couple last notes here for me that I'm interested in. I will say Texas A&M, who is ranked 16th here in these rankings, just won their 3rd straight Red River Sevens conference championship. So they play their sevens in the fall again, as some schools do. So that's a pretty big accomplishment to win 3 in a row there in the Red River Sevens. I will say I'm reminded constantly by some people on Twitter, Travis Norman especially, that I did call the Red River Conference the kiddie pool last year, and I do apologize for that. But it is what it is. I think I was just being maybe I don't apologize, but we're just being honest, But again, guys, what do you think? That's a pretty good accomplishment there by the Aggies.
The trifecta.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the trifecta, 3 in a row, 3 solid wins there, Sevens conference championships. So College Rugby Wrap Up, kudos there to the Aggies. And I want to talk about now, guys, too, that Friday Night Lights, it was such a cool thing. We'll say Thomas More did win that interview. They did win that game against Adrian on the Friday Night Lights this week. And that was a huge matchup in the Big Rivers. I love that concept. I love that NCR does this. I love that they're, kind of creating a platform for college rugby to be viewed by people and having like a marquee island game, like the NFL does with Monday night games or Thursday night games, just kind of giving people a reason to be hyped up about that. Colby, what do you think about these Friday Night Lights games there for NCR?
I'm glad that they're at least better than Thursday Night Football in the NFL. I mean, at the very least, we got a close game between Thomas More and Adrian, which was, let me say, a really nice matchup that we were talking about last week. A really nice matchup to see. And so I think that it's great for the game. Saturday is a rugby day, but why not play on Friday nights? I love Friday night games more than any other game when I was a player at Iona. I love playing on Friday nights.
Matt, do you like these games?
That's when Iona used to win consistently.
Exactly.
Oh man,
when I was on the team.
A lot of visiting teams don't want to go out at night in New Rochelle, so you have that distinct advantage right there for the gals.
Oh, we never played at home on Friday nights. We'd go to Fordham, we'd go to Rutgers, we'd go to Penn State.
Rutgers on a Friday. There's not much to do in New Brunswick at night either on a Friday.
Oh, there's some things you can do. We found some. We found some things to do after the game.
Yeah,
it is college. I'll just save that for the next drink up pod that we do. But do you like the concept of Friday night games, Matt, at the college level?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's could be the answer for like a lot of these folks that have the two different ideas or philosophies on college rugby. Notre Dame, Hickey doing it right. What he's doing is he's piggybacking those big time college football games on Saturday by having the games on Friday night against the team that's playing Notre Dame in football on Saturday. Instead of running from it, you embrace it and use it for Friday nights. I'm not talking anybody specifically, but if Jack Clark, you're listening out there, maybe. How you doing, Coach? Cal on a Friday night when your football team's playing a powerhouse. That's all I'm saying.
You got UCLA joining the Big Ten, right, at the football thing. So they'll have some marquee college games as well to pair things with out there on the West Coast.
Coached by what's his name?
Never a good thing to do when you're an expert on a rugby podcast. Is say, like you're just throwing me under the bus, just constantly quizzing me on the 8-man's name.
Harry Bennett.
Let's just show how much shit we don't know.
Harry Bennett, I know him. Harry Bennett, I knew it. I just needed a second.
Harry Bennett, another MLR accomplished rugby player, taking the reins at a program there as well over at UCLA. A la Ben Foden here in Fordham on the East Coast. Former Rugby New York players as well, Matt. So the Rugby New York seems to be distributing their talent across the college landscape.
They are indeed.
Because I know, I believe, Colby, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've had some Iona players who went on to play at Rugby New York come back and help out with coaching as well.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Connor Buckley has started his coaching career along with his young.
And John Powers.
Upstart.
Yeah.
Right. And John Powers as well.
Sure.
Isn't Dylan Fawcett involved? Was he at Fordham with Ben Foden?
Dylan was up at Fordham for a while.
He was also at the school right around the corner from Iona, which is
and while Colby's doing that, also Pongo Hakma Haini is coaching the New York women's team. I know that's not a college team, but I saw him on Saturday, New York Rugby Club Family Day, the best club in the United States of America, the New York Rugby Club, also the oldest club. There's your plug.
Wow, there you go. Coaching is important. I think we have a dearth of quality coaching. I think there are a lot of really good coaches and stuff who are involved, but we need as many as we can get, I think, at all levels of the game to start turning things around at the top levels as well. So I'm happy to see a lot of these people getting involved with programs like this and kind of teaching, instructing the youth of American rugby on these things. So
speaking of the youth, it was the Butcher who actually had a hand in the development at Monroe College for the rugby program for a few years.
There you go. There we have it. Colby saved himself and brought it home on a nice point there. Kudos, Colby, on that one.
Kudos, Colby.
Kudos, Colby.
Before we have to mention as well that Josh isn't here today, but Michigan State got absolutely destroyed by Notre Dame on the weekend on the men's side.
Would it be fair to say that they got mollywopped?
I don't know. I don't know if that's fair. I don't know. To be fair, I don't know what that expression means. So
it means you got a butt whooping. I'm going to say this: the sun don't shine on the same dog's ass every day. I think Michigan State did not have a good performance, but I think they're going to bounce back, and I know that they're going to be ready for the battle of the mitten.
No,
and I know that they're going to be ready for the battle for the mitten.
There we go.
Against Michigan. You could bank on it.
That's going to be a great game. I think, both teams have been kind of up and down through the season, but I'm sure they're both going to be up for the battle for the mitten later on this month, the end of the month, October. So that should be a hell of a clash. And I wish we'll have Josh on next week to break it all down a little bit more as well. We'll get into that next week's episode, some of the specifics on that. But that's going to be a great game. And a lot of us are going to be out there covering it. So follow along. We'll be out there. Colby, you'll be missed. I'm sorry you can't make the trip.
I have not enough funds in the old fund.
Someone has to stay home and watch Liberty Conference games, Colby. And I know you're gonna take care of it for us.
I'm gonna hold it down. And for the record, the sun shines on my dog's ass every single day in morning.
Guys, it's time for us to look ahead here now and what games are coming up in this weekend's slate. What do we like? What should people make an effort to tune into? What games are important for kind of the overall landscape of college teams? And I don't know if there's anyone, for me at least, guys, that is more impactful than that Brown versus Dartmouth match, as Matt was mentioning, at Brown there on the 22nd. That should be a huge game.
Yeah, Zach, I think you're right. That's going to be an awesome game. A great test for Brown, who have just been steamrolling through their schedule so far. So I agree. I think you're spot on with that analysis.
And I'm going to piggyback that one real fast. Coach Dave LaFlamme, who happens to be a Vandal, you bet your sweet ass he's a Vandal, has really done a great job, not taking away from Dartmouth, but this team is loaded, and they are playing at home at Brown. If they were playing in Hanover, maybe it might be different, but I think Brown wins this one by 10.
Wow. Okay. Matt, you'll have to make a lock it up pick for us later on. That could be your lock it up since Josh isn't here. But we usually pick a game that we lock it in. We say this team is definitely going to win. So you're saying Brown 10 points over Dartmouth there at home on the 22nd.
I am indeed.
Wow, big call. I will say also, I don't know if I'll pick this for my lock of the week, but I have to go Dartmouth because my man Jack Swords from Holy Cross is playing prop for Dartmouth this year. So it's some home cooking there.
That is, of course, Kevin Swords, the second most famous Holy Cross Crusader behind Zach Lanning, ladies and gentlemen.
That behind probably Jack Swords now. So I get bumped to, I'm still maybe
no,
top 3.
You're number 1. Kevin's number 2 behind you.
Okay.
And then Jack. Of course, these are slanted rankings.
I'm very happy that you brought up Holy Cross because I actually ran into a buddy that knows you from Holy Cross. He went there, played rugby, Stephen O'Loughlin, Zach. I don't know if that name rings a bell.
Steve O'Loughlin does definitely ring a bell. He was the president after me at Holy Cross. So he was 1 year below me at Holy Cross, took over from me as the president of the club when I went into my senior year, and he was a junior. He was a force out there, man. We were glad to have him on our side.
Huge. He's huge.
He is. He's a big kid.
He's looking. I'm gonna be his personal trainer.
Very nice. All right. Well, it's a little late for him to start getting in shape now. Our careers at Holy Cross are over, but
don't tell him that.
Tell him I said that I hope he's playing club somewhere. I hope he's keeping the rugby going. But push him a little extra hard for me, Colby. Give him a couple 10 push-ups or whatever, or a pull-up with weights around your ankles.
Will do. I definitely will. He missed today's session, so yeah, that's definitely going to happen.
You got to watch out. I remember that. He skipped a few practices in his day, but keep him close.
All right. While we're talking about that, guys, I want to bring up a match that I'm just going to segue because you guys are going to keep talking. So I'm going to go with how about Michigan State playing Ohio State? Both teams needing a bounce back win, right? That's an interesting match to watch. How good is Ohio State? Where do they rank overall? Where do they rank in D1A, on the national scale? This is a big match for both of these organizations or colleges.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. Ohio State coming off that loss to Davenport, but they are defending Big Ten champions. They have a lot of pride on the line. They've also lost to Indiana this year in the Big Ten. But this is a chance for, to start making some improvements and face off against a quality Michigan State side that is looking to rack some wins together, looking to tie some wins together before that aforementioned battle for the mitten. So that should be a great game, a Big Ten clash there. And as you mentioned, I think that's also tied to the football game on Saturday as well. But that should be a great match. Colby, what are you thinking about that Michigan State versus Ohio State?
Yeah, it's giving me some real college football vibes. It's getting me excited. It's getting me pumped up. I like it. Michigan State. I'm going with Ohio State. I'm going with the Buckeyes. I don't want the Spartans to win. I don't like Spartans. I don't like the Spartan that we have on our show.
Wow.
I think he's a rotten Spartan.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm going with the Bucks.
So yeah, that should be a great match there. Michigan State, Ohio State. A couple others to keep an eye on. Penn State versus St Bonaventure on the men's side on Saturday. Penn State may drop to 1-5 on the season, coming off a couple straight losses to Army and Navy. St Bonaventure, I think, is going to take that one. They are still a very, very solid side. Adrian versus Wheeling in a matchup of big rivers, some more big rivers play. Wheeling, of course, are some of our favorites, but Adrian's also a podcast favorite because we had Coach Benny on last year. So not sure who I like in that one, but it should be a pretty good matchup nonetheless.
I like Adrian in that one.
We'll see. I don't know. I like Wheeling. Wheeling's got they got some great athletes. They got some moves. So, and Adrian coming off that loss to Thomas More on Friday night. We'll see. But keep an eye on Georgetown this year, guys. I like them a lot as well. Not a program that we talk about that often, but they are hot this year. They have a game against Mount St. Mary's, which should be a good test for them. I think, we'll see how that result is. We can talk about that maybe on the pod next week as well. And on the women's side, huge game. Michigan, number 2 ranked in the NCR at Davenport, who are their first year in NYRA in the Tier 2, have had a very strong year. They're always a tough out. So that would be a real good test for a Michigan women's side that has been dominant so far, beating our Iowa team, our favorite Iowa team, a couple weeks ago. So that should be a good one. But let's get into our picks.
Who's our favorite Iowa team?
It's a podcast favorite, man. I'm sorry. I guess I won't loop you in on that. But
you just did, and I don't have anything against Iowa, but I didn't say Iowa was my favorite team.
What is your favorite team from Iowa?
Oh my goodness!
Until I get a hat, and then they're my favorite team.
We got to have Maggie Burns on again. Get us some merch.
Yeah, well, she's Northern Iowa. So Iowa is amazing at women's rugby, and I'm sure men's rugby as well, but specifically women's rugby, because in the NCR, that 4, I think, of the top 5 programs are from Iowa. So you have Northern Iowa, and Iowa State. And I think Southern Nazarene might be in Iowa as well, but I'm not sure. But so, I mean, that's at like 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the rankings are all Iowa schools. That's amazing to me.
It's the Midwest, Colby, baby.
And Colby, what you just said is like the same as somebody confusing the St. Mary's Gales with the Iona's Gales.
There you go.
So let's apologize, Colby.
It's
very much.
I apologize to Northern Iowa. I don't apologize to anyone.
And the entire state, please. Thank you.
So we'll get into our picks now. Now that we've established who everyone's favorite Iowa team is. I moved to 3-2 last week on the season as Army was able to handle Penn State. I knew that Penn State wasn't going to be the team that would upset the Knights, the Black Knights in this one. Josh, because he did not submit a pick, the rules are that he gets an automatic L because I just was trying to catch up to him in the standings, and I have.
I was just going to say again because he's done it consecutively.
Again, that's 2 weeks in a row. This may be the second week in a row. We'll see if he accepts maybe Matt's pick as a substitute, but he dropped to 3-2. Colby, you fell to 2-3. You have the worst record out of all of us. You had Adrian upsetting Thomas More on Friday night. What happened, man? What happened?
Yo, Adrian.
In light of the fact that I'm running the Rocky Balboa half marathon in Philadelphia next month, I had to go with Adrian.
Of course.
Adrian. I had to go with Adrian. I think they're gonna bounce back this week. And let's be honest, like I'm not gonna pick the favorites like you guys. I'm gonna go with teams that might be underdogs that might pull off, that I think based on my analysis and rugby knowledge and know abouts, I think we'll pull off victories. I'm not just going to go with freaking St. Bonaventure over, I don't know.
Colby, that's fine if you like picking underdogs, as long as you don't like winning as well. That's totally fine. Also, I'm happy with that. But I will continue to my resurgence from 0-2 here. We talked about Holy Cross a lot on this episode. I'm actually picking, this is the week I'm picking my Holy Cross Crusaders over Middlebury College. So I'm going to get outside of some of the other schools, kind of the top end schools that I've been picking for these games. I'm going to say Holy Cross beats Middlebury this week. And I'm staking my reputation and my 3-2 record on that result.
And the University at Buffalo will be victorious this weekend as well.
There you go. Who are they playing?
Doesn't matter.
So we'll give you the University at Buffalo, Matt, this week, and if Josh wants to keep that as his pick, he's welcome to do so. Colby, who's your lock of the week?
Penn State. I'm taking Penn State over Bonnie's.
Wow.
Loser.
Oh, wow. Penn State over St Bonaventure. That would be a huge, huge victory.
I'm telling you what, they're going to win one of these games against one of the big teams. I think it's going to be against St Bonaventure.
It ain't going to be against Tui Osborne and co. Not a chance.
Yeah, I'm with Matt on this, Colby. I'm not seeing it, but who knows?
2 chances, Slim and none, and Slim's on the golf course.
We'll see. Colby, if you get that, then you can have 2 wins for that, I think. Because I appreciate your upset picks, but
laugh now, cry later.
Bonnie's by 12.
12 double-digit win.
What are these lines we're getting? We're getting money lines with Matt on the College Rugby Wrap Up.
Everybody, make sure you check out the rugby odds when that season comes back. Matt, any announcements on that front?
Teasers.
I am not at liberty to tell you that we're going to start again in a week and a half.
Ooh, heard it here first, folks. Tune in for that. Get the best betting records here. Last segment of the show, guys, before we close it out. This is one that Josh made up on the fly 2 episodes ago, and I love. And if I'm scrolling through Twitter and I come across a results graphic that has the proper score. This is the segment we haven't named it yet, really, but it's one team beats another team by a lot of points is the kind of working title of it. And so this week, the game we're highlighting.
I think we found the name of it today.
I don't know if that's not as marketable. You can't put that on shirts and stuff. It's a little long.
Mollywopped?
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I thought what I was gonna do, but we could do that. We'll workshop that. We'll have to put that in a focus group.
We'll workshop it.
Let's see if that comes out. But the team we're highlighting this week.
Run it up the flagpole. See who salutes. Run it up the flagpole. See who salutes it. Noodle it. Let it marinate. Circle back, and we'll talk about it.
We're gonna do all those. We're gonna do all those things. But for the meantime, it's still unnamed. And UNI men, who we're gonna highlight, beat University of Illinois Chicago this week, 141-0. Guys, that is a very impressive scoreline. So a College Rugby Wrap Up kudos to UNI men's team for the 141-point victory. Have either of you guys in your rugby careers ever been involved in a match, either up 141 or down 141, that had 141-point differential in it?
No, sir.
Not even close.
I don't think we at Holy Cross with my senior year scored 141 points cumulatively.
I watched the All Blacks destroy Team USA at FedEx Field.
But even that wasn't that bad.
It was close. It was 100 points. But yeah, it wasn't not as bad as the 141 points. That felt personal to me. I don't know if there was some animosity between UNI and University of Illinois Chicago, but that felt personal. But that's it for us, guys, this week. Zach Lanning, Colby Marshall, Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the College Rugby Wrap Up podcast. Any parting words here that you have now that you've been through the ringer here with the show?
This is not easy, folks. These guys know their stuff. You can't really hide. I try sometimes, but you got to do your homework when you come on the College Rugby Wrap Up. And that reminds me, it's time for our Shihi Auto Stores pop quiz.
Wow.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, I'm going to give you the question. Don't answer, and I'll call on each one of you. Bill Clinton's middle name is Zach.
I only know Hillary's middle name, or not even her maiden name, not even her middle name.
That's not the question, and you're running out of time.
Bill.
I'm going to help you. His first name is really William.
Right. Henry.
And Colby?
Alexander.
Judges? No. Sorry, it's William Jefferson Clinton.
Jefferson. Wow.
Yeah. He was just the president of the United States, guys, the leader of the free world for 8 years. You don't need to know his name.
He wasn't one of the presidents that included their middle initial in their name. Like, I know all of those middle names, you know.
He just went by Bill. I'm Bill Clinton.
Yeah, he never introduced himself as Will Jefferson.
He was my mother's favorite president.
Wow.
And by the way, Colby was just verifying that I was being correct, and that is your Sheehy Auto Store's college pop quiz of the day.
Always fun. We'll have to reincorporate those back into the show. I still have the theme music, Matt, that you sent. I do miss those.
Well, it's college, and you get pop quizzes in college, right?
That's very true.
Really.
It's a good point. I like that.
That is very true. Well, yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This episode, College Rugby Wrap Up, part of the Rugby Wrap Up network, so graciously allowed to exist. Thank you, Matt, for letting us do this all the time. And we will have other segments, as I said, this week. We'll have our deep dive coming out as well. But keep an eye out. We're going to have content coming at you all over the place. Matt has stuff coming out all the time. Weekly episodes. You're a very busy man, Matt. Is there anything you want to plug before we finally get out of here?
Yeah, we'll have a big MLR weekly show talking about the future of the MLR 2023. We'll have some stuff coming out as soon as the ink dries and I can get verification and vet stuff, because that's what we do. We actually vet it and verify it before we record it.
Like journalists.
Yes.
Blue checks. You got the blue checks.
Yeah, nobody more plugged in the MLR, the goings and comings, than Matt McCarthy. So everybody, make sure you tune in for that episode as well. We will be back next week with more college rugby on the College Rugby Wrap Up. Colby, take us out, man. Take us out.
Matt McCarthy is on the college show today, and he ain't afraid to make fun of me. It's the College Rugby Show. Hey.
Amazing.